aggression against our country, they will certainly face other surprising options.
As diplomatic efforts remain deadlocked, Iranian leadership is framing the conflict as a strategic failure for opponents.
The enemy did not achieve any of their predetermined objectives. They were defeated in this war. Why? Because fundamentally, modern wars are analyzed based on the degree of achievement of objectives. Which side in the war was victorious and which side was defeated?
With both sides holding their positions, diplomatic efforts appear stalled for now. The US wants an immediate halt to fighting before broader negotiations, while Iran is pushing for sanctions relief, security guarantees, and even regional concessions before any deal moves forward. The Gulf is on the edge again. A series of drone incidents across the UAE, Qatar, and Kuwait have raised fears that the US-Iran ceasefire may be unraveling. The United Arab Emirates says its air defense systems intercepted 2 drones launched from Iran on Sunday. The UAE Defense Ministry said that UAEs were successfully engaged before they could reach their targets. While authorities have not revealed their intended targets, the attacks underline how quick the conflict risks are spreading across the Gulf. Meanwhile, Qatar says that a commercial shipping cargo was struck by a drone in the country's territorial waters. Qatar authorities say the ship, which was traveling from Abu Dhabi, suffered a limited fire after the strike. The UK Maritime Trade Body also confirmed this attack. They said that a bulk carrier had been hit by an unknown projectile about 23 nautical miles off Doha. Meanwhile, the Iranian state media claimed the attack ship was in fact operating under the US flag. Now the incident comes just days after the US fired threat disabled 2 Iranian flag tankers in the Gulf of Oman. Iran's Revolutionary Guards have then warned that enemy ships could be targeted if Iranian vessels came under attack. Again, Kuwait has also reported a drone incident. The country's military said its forces detected a number of hostile drones in Kuwaiti airspace at dawn on Sunday. The army said the UAVs were dealt with, but did not specify whether they were shot down or where they came from. With 3 Gulf states now reporting drone-related security incidents within hours of each other, concerns are growing about a wider regional spillover. The bigger concern now is the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most critical oil shipping choke point. Qatar's Prime Minister held a phone call with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi on Sunday. During the call, Qatar warned Iran against using the Strait of Hormuz as a pressure pump, as around a fifth of the world's oil trade passes through the Strait of Hormuz.
His Excellency Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs stressed that freedom of navigation is a well-established principle that must not be compromised, and that closing the Strait of Hormuz or using it as a pressure card would only lead to deepening the crisis and exposing the vital interests of the region's countries to danger. He further noted the potential negative repercussions this could have on global energy food supply chains.
Somewhere above 99.5% of the Earth's atmosphere.
Meanwhile, the United Nations, Iran last week rejected the US embodied their resolution on resuming commercial shipping through the Hormuz. Tehran points out that it's the US that has attacked Iran, and that its military acts in the region are acts of retaliation.
As you are aware, the United States and the Kingdom of Bahrain has joined the table deeply throughout alongside the together the way to have a solution in the situation in around the Strait of Hormuz. They claim that the actions are intended to protect freedom of navigation in the state of Hormuz and make some baseless allegation against my country. The fact on the ground prove otherwise. The actions of the United States stand in stark contradiction to its stated objectives and have served only to escalate tensions and deepen instability in the region. Iran's position is clear. The only viable solution in the Strait of Hormuz is a permanent end to the war, the lifting of maritime blockade, and the restoration of normal passage.
The drones targeting airspace should remain of commercial vessels. The risk of a misstep leading to a wider conflict is growing by the hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has called on Indians to adopt a series of measures aimed at helping the country deal with global economic uncertainty due to the war in West Asia. Speaking at a public rally in Hyderabad, Telangana, the Prime Minister urged citizens to place national interests above personal convenience. He asked people to make temporary lifestyle adjustments to reduce India's dependence on imported energy. Linking his appeal to the wider global instability caused by the ongoing conflict, Prime Minister Modi said this was a time for collective responsibility and shared sacrifice. One of his main messages was a call to reduce the use of oil and petroleum products.
अगर हम तेल खाना कम करें ना तो भी वो देशभक्ति का बहुत बड़ा काम है। आप देश सेवा में योगदान दे सकते हैं और इससे देश सेवा भी होगी और देश सेवा भी होगी। इससे देश के खजाने का स्वास्थ्य भी सुधरेगा।
Good evening, Ma'am Kulats. Pwede na tayong mag-live.
The Prime Minister asked people to choose public transport wherever possible.
Kunin ko saan kung sino yung unang
He
kung
encouraged
sino yung
citizens to
una
use
sa live chat ko.
daily commutes and to rely
Yan ang
on
una kong nilapag.
for goods transportation. According to the Indian leader, these small changes can have a large national impact by cutting down petrol and diesel consumption, which in turn would help reduce India's dependence on foreign currency for energy imports. He also urged people to temporarily pause the traditional fast food during festivals.
लेकिन देश हित में हमको ये तय करना पड़ेगा कि साल भर तक घर में कोई भी फंक्शन हो, कोई भी कार्यक्रम हो, हम सोने के गहने नहीं खरीदेंगे, सोना नहीं खरीदेंगे।
Prime Minister Modi pushed for greater adoption of electric vehicles, saying the shift towards cleaner transport can support both economic self-reliance and long-term sustainability. And in a nod to the COVID-19 era, the Prime Minister asked people and businesses to revive practices such as work from home, virtual meetings, and video conferencing. He said India had already developed these habits during the pandemic and that returning to them would help improve efficiency during the current global situation. He pointed to a growing trend among the middle class of traveling and celebrating important events overseas. The Prime Minister said this was a moment to reconsider such expenses in the national interest.
जैसे आजकल जो विदेशों में शादियों का, विदेशियों में घूमने का, विदेशों में वैकेशन पर जाने का मिडिल क्लास में कल्चर बढ़ता जा रहा है। हमें तय करना होगा कि जब ये संकट का काल है और हमारी देशभक्ति हमें लगता है तो कम से कम एक साल के लिए हमें विदेशों में जाने की बातों को टालना चाहिए।
Reviving the spoken for local message that was first emphasized during the COVID-19 pandemic, Prime Minister Modi said building economic self-sufficiency remains a national priority. Modi also spoke about agriculture, urging farmers to reduce their dependence on chemical fertilizers.
विदेशी मुद्रा की खपत वाला एक और फैक्टर हमारी खेती है। हम बहुत बड़ी मात्रा में बाहर से केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर इंपोर्ट करते हैं। बहुत जरूरी है कि हम केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर की खपत उसको कटाई आगे कर दें। किसान साहब नेत्र फार्मिंग की तरफ बढ़े।
Now, the Prime Minister's message to the nations come at a time when the West Asia crisis is putting a pressure on energy dependency across the world. With tensions threatening oil flows and driving up prices, the Indian government appears to be preparing the public for possible economic aftershocks. In many ways, this is a precautionary message, a signal that India is watching global developments closely and wants its citizens to play a proactive role in its economic strategy. That's all for now. Thank you for joining us. I am Lucy Gala and we'll see you right back here tomorrow at the same time. Until then, stay informed and stay tuned to First News.
Hello and welcome to First Post Live, where we review the day's top stories from across the world. I'm Joshua Barnes, live from the First Post studios. Let's begin the headlines. Two Chinese signal tankers carrying 4 million barrels of crude oil have exited the Hormuz Strait. US Vice President J.D. Vance says progress has been made in talks to end the West Asia conflict and in turn open the right way. Thousands of people have been rescued after a landslide in India. Overnight operations impacted the Kedarnath Yatra route, which receives more than 1.5 million pilgrims annually. A Russian attack in the eastern Ukrainian city of Dnipro has killed 2 people, according to local authorities. Strike comes as Russia conducts nuclear drills and is black movements in home schools with President Xi Jinping. Taiwanese leader Lai Ching-te says that foreign forces cannot decide the future of the democratic island. The remarks come days after Donald Trump sent arms sales to Taiwan and become a bargaining chip with China. And 430 activists aboard the Gaza aid flotilla are on their way to Israel. The vessels were intercepted by Israeli forces at sea, with Tel Aviv describing the flotilla as a PR stunt at the service of Hamas. Just days after Donald Trump walked through the heart of Beijing with President Xi Jinping, Russian President Vladimir Putin has now arrived in Chinese capital. And the contrast between the two visits was already offering a rare glimpse into how Xi Jinping manages power, personality, and diplomacy. Earlier this morning, Putin was welcomed with full state honours outside China's Red Hall. Military bands played the Russian and Chinese national anthems, children waved flags, and Xi Jinping walked side by side with Russian President Vladimir Putin across the Western Market. But the story headline not just in the ceremonies, but in the body language. With Putin, he appeared composed, familiar and deeply at ease. Their movements were synchronized, their interactions measured, almost like two men with one comfortable with Trump was winning. But as Xi and Putin were projecting far familiarity, Trump and Xi projected something very different. A carefully managed contrast in style. There was a group in Beijing's Temple of Heaven. The US and Chinese leaders were and many of their members encounters. That the visions also revealed two completely different political personalities. Trump smiled frequently. Back for children making flags, just give a film, physically engaging with Xi throughout the war. Xi, on the other hand, remained characteristically controlled. He waved briefly, spoken short, logic phrases, and often looked directly at the cameras following him. Analysts also noted how carefully Xi handled the handshakes. Trump is well known for his so-called powerful, a dominant style of handshake that is used in multiple world leaders. Xi appeared to tell him not to let that happen. The interaction with their founders, almost choreographed, real, controlled, personal, whatever over the land. With Putin, however, that level of caution seemed to disappear. The comfort between the two men had been built over the years. Xi and Putin have met more than 40 times since 2013. Xi has previously been Putin his best and most intimate friend, and their diplomacy was often gone far beyond the sevens. They celebrated birthdays together, shared tea, walked through private gardens, projected their huge strategic trust at a time of growing recognition. In fact, one of the most symbolic moments in the last year, Xi hosted Putin inside Shanghai Park behind the restricted leadership compound of the park in Chinese power. The two men sat outdoors without ties, Putin setting rarely shaped to foreign leaders. For Xi Jinping, this kind of access is not just personal, it is political theatre, a signal of trust and interestingly, it was Donald Trump himself during his supposed visit. Highlighting that during his recent walk with Xi through the quiet valley garden inside Shanghai, Trump asked Xi whether other foreign leaders would support him. Thousands of years ago, the difference reflects something bigger about China's relationships with both men. Putin, Xi is dealing with a strategic partner whose isolation from the West has pushed Moscow closer to Beijing than ever before. Two leaders share a common distrust of US spread power, and both see their partnership essential to a more multipolar world. With Donald Trump, however, the equation is far more complex. There may be personal chemistry, even mutual curiosity, but underneath it lies competition. And trade, technology, military power, and global influence. That is why the visions matter so much. In Chinese diplomacy, settings, gestures, and access are never accidental. Who walks where? Who gets invited inside? Who is shown informal spaces? And who gets the more relaxed version of Xi Jinping? All of it sends a message. So while both Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin see grand welcomes in Beijing, the body language from two very important skills. One, strategic familiarity, while trust, the other, engagement with super powerful men who still see each other as potential partners, but also rivals. And in today's world, diplomacy sometimes
Yeah, I'm not over. You sit down. So, you sit down here. You can see you. I'm live.
A message that comes at a time
The chair.
in himself falling.
What? The chair where you cover.
Moving now to breaking developments from right, Indian
Ayaw
Italian
Ayaw mag-pin.
and in a moment that blended diplomacy with personal chemistry, Prime Minister Modi presented Italian Prime Minister with its off-the-load chocolates, based on knowledge to the now viral version of their names. The gift, light-hearted yet carefully symbolic, reflected the more before it was come to define the occasion on the global stage.
Prime Minister Modi was a gift. Very, very hot.
Sit down there. I want to start video lang.
Earlier after landing at Roman Pirates, the Modi met Georgia Meloni over dinner
You need to stop my YouTube. You can sit down what?
Social media, leaders exchange perspectives on a wide range of subjects. He said that it is
You can sit down next to the chair. Post the one.
I want to masuk they can see.
No. Only the TV there. You can see only the TV. Focus on the TV.
Stage. The G20 meetings, G7 summits, a high-profile financial engagements. In fact, Prime Minister Modi even wrote a foreword for Georgia Meloni's book, a gesture that underlined the personal rapport between the two leaders. But beyond the chemistry, talks involve are expected to focus on hard strategic interests. Reports suggest both countries could elevate their relationship to special strategic partners, with a target of taking bilateral trade to over $23 billion by the year. Business leaders from the countries also expected to participate in high-level
Only everybody already inside know. So many people already know. In my website, you see? Kurang je. No. How many know? Kurang. They are coming.
Kurang je. Betul kan tau. Cepat lah, yo. Kacau lah, cepat. Ayo.
The discussions of identifying trade, defense, artificial intelligence, energy trade, minerals, and
This Bella, I don't know. It's daddy. And I run.
India, Europe, and diversified partnerships, which continue uncertainty in global markets. The visit also carries a broader geopolitical message. Rome, India is increasingly being seen as a key strategic partner for the future. And in the beginning, it even represents an important European economy and a gateway into the wider European Union. Prime Minister Modi was also expected as Italian President Sergio Mattarella represents the headquarters of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. There, India is expected to be a
Mambing, ayaw mag-click kasi yung isang CP ko, yun ang nagmo-monitor. Hindi ko mag-click. Hindi mag-click. Wala naman lumalabas na pin.
giving you gold status. Moving on, a new report is shedding light on the true cost of America's military operations against Iran, and the numbers are staggering. At least 42 US aircraft were lost or damaged during Operation Epic Fury, a military campaign launched on February 28, targeting Iran. The figures include some of America's most advanced military assets, from front-line devices and fighter jets to surveillance aircraft, refueling tankers, helicopters, and a large number of combat drones. The report claims that the final number could still change, as some details remain classified, and assessments continue.
Yun nga, Mambing. Yung monitor ko, yun ang ano. Yun ang yung channel ko. Itong ano, Ninja, ang ginagamit ko. Ang problema yung main channel ko, ayaw naman mag-pin doon. Kasi yun ang ano, yun ang main channel ko. Ito yung ginagamit kong monitor ko na ano. Ay, yung ginagamit ko sa live chat yung ano, yung Ninja. Pag gamitin ko yun, hindi nag-English. Pag ginamit ko yung main channel ko, nag-English.
2 Special Operations aircraft and one HH-60W Johnny Green 2 rescue helicopter were also reported damaged or destroyed. But the
Nakaswitch na nga, wala naman lumalabas na ano.
The report says the
Pin.
US lost or suffered damage to 24 MQ-9 Reaper drones known for their long endurance, surveillance, and precision strike capabilities. An additional MQ-4C Triton was also used for strategic reconnaissance and was impacted. While the Pentagon has not publicly provided a full breakdown of each incident, the report offers one of the clearest pictures yet of the scale of losses during the Iran operation. And the military damage is only one part of the story. The financial cost of this campaign is also rising rapidly. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has faced intense questioning as lawmakers from both parties press the Pentagon for answers on the true cost and exit strategy of Operation Fury. The estimated costs of US military operations in Iran has now increased to $29 billion. Hegseth has defended Trump's Iran war, stressing Iran cannot be allowed to possess a nuclear weapon.
Why won't you answer what it costs to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb?
I give you that, sir. Let me.
What would it cost? What would you pay to ensure Iran doesn't get a nuclear bomb? We have an incredible economic team that's managing this better than what the previous administration did for our economy. The previous administration did for the inflation.
In other words, the cost of fixing or rebuilding these lost assets is now becoming a major burden on the US defense budget. The combination of aircraft losses and soaring costs is likely to spark new questions in Washington about the long-term strategy in Iran. Public opinion in the United States is also shifting sharply against the war. According to a New York Times Siena College poll, 64% of American voters say it was the wrong decision for the United States to go to war with Iran. That means nearly 2 out of every 3 voters now disapprove of the decision to enter this conflict. The same survey also shows President Trump's approval rating at just 37%, a significant warning sign for the White House. For now, it is clear that Operation Epic Fury has come at a much higher price than the Trump administration might have expected. 42 aircraft impacted, $29 billion spent and rising. The question now is whether these costs will alter Trump's approach in West Asia, or whether Washington will stay the course despite the growing cost. President Donald Trump has once again issued a fresh timeline on possible military action against Iran, warning that Washington could launch new strikes within days if talks with Iran fail. The warning comes amid rising tensions across West Asia, with Iran threatening retaliation and Israel intensifying operations on the Lebanon front. However, speaking at the White House, Trump struck an optimistic tone on the diplomatic push with Iran.
We're going to end that war very quickly. They want to make a deal so badly. They're tired of this. This should have happened for 47 years. Somebody should have done something about it, and it's going to happen. And it's going to happen fast, and you're going to see oil prices plummet. They're going to come down. There's so much oil out there. They're going to come plummeting down. But even with that, the stock market's at an all-time high.
Well, even as diplomatic efforts continue, Trump revealed just how close Washington came to launching fresh military action against Iran.
Striking Iran. You're going through that. Did you have planes in the air?
I was an hour away. We were all set to go. You're talking about yesterday.
Yeah.
Trump claimed Gulf allies requested a short window for negotiation, saying talks were showing signs of progress. After repeatedly shifting timelines on possible action against Iran, Trump has now put another short deadline on Tehran, suggesting the next few days to decide whether diplomacy survives or military action returns. Listen in.
Well, I've been up saying 2 or 3 days, maybe Friday, Saturday, Sunday, something, maybe early next week. Limited period of time. Because we can't let them have a nuclear weapon.
Well, he also claimed that previous rounds of negotiations had nearly succeeded before collapsing, but described the current diplomatic effort as different from earlier attempts. Meanwhile, Vice President J.D. Vance said Washington remains locked and loaded. However, he claimed that diplomacy could still prevent further escalation. Iran responded sharply to Trump's warning. The Iranian army spokesperson warned that Iran would open new fronts against the United States if attacks resumed. He said Iran would use new methods and new equipment in any future response. diplomacy and war. Iran has continued signaling military readiness despite the fragile ceasefire in place since April. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi claimed Iran used the pause in fighting to strengthen its military capabilities. He also warned that any return to war would bring many more surprises. Iran has also kept pressure on key regional waterways, including, of course, the Strait of Hormuz. As tensions remain between Washington and Tehran, the Israel-Lebanon front continues to be volatile. The Israeli military issued further evacuation warnings for towns and villages in southern Lebanon. The warnings come ahead of expected strikes on Hezbollah positions. Israel claimed Hezbollah had violated the ceasefire. It says those violations forced the military to continue operations in the region. The conflict between the US, Israel, and Iran began in February 28. Since then, it has continued to destabilize the region. This despite repeated diplomatic efforts and temporary pauses in fighting. With Trump continuing to shift timelines on possible action against Iran, and Tehran signaling readiness for war while holding leverage over the Strait of Hormuz, the question now, does the constant posturing have any impact on potential peace or further escalation? And for thousands of Meta employees, they began not with a morning meeting, but with a layoff. Meta has started a fresh round of global job cuts with around 8,000 employees expected to be impacted as the company doubles down on artificial intelligence investments. According to a Bloomberg report, employees at Meta's Singapore hub were among the first to receive their emails, some as early as 4 a.m. local time. The company is reportedly rolling out the job cuts in waves across different time zones. Meta had earlier asked employees in the US, Britain, and in other regions to work from home during the announcements. The latest round of cuts could affect nearly 10% of Meta's global workforce. The company has close to 8,000 employees, that before the restructuring process began. Meta's chief people officer said the company is also reassigning around 7,000 employees into new AI-focused teams. Meta, the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, is one of the world's largest tech companies. The Mark Zuckerberg-led firm has been aggressively expanding its artificial intelligence business in recent years. The restructuring is expected to impact engineering, product development, operations, and support teams. Meta says the changes are aimed at making things faster, leaner, and more efficient. The company has also closed around 6,000 open job posts as part of this overhaul.
We're now at the stage where organizations can operate with a flatter structure, with smaller teams of pods that can move faster and with more ownership. We believe this will make us more productive and make the work more rewarding.
The layoffs come as Meta prepares to spend massively on artificial intelligence this year. The company has said it could invest between $125 and $145 billion into AI infrastructure, data centers, and advanced chips. Reports also suggest employee morale inside Meta has taken a hit. Some workers expressed concern after details of the job cuts leaked last month. In recent weeks, Meta has also faced internal pushback over software that tracks employees' mouth movements and keystrokes to train AI systems. More than 1,000 employees reportedly signed a petition opposing the cuts. The latest round of cuts adds to multiple layoffs Meta has announced since 2022. The job cuts are part of Mark Zuckerberg's broader near efficiency strategy. The move reflects a larger shift across the tech industry as companies race to prioritize AI development. Meta is not alone in cutting jobs. Cisco recently announced it would eliminate about 4,000 roles, while Microsoft, Amazon, and other major tech firms have also announced layoffs or voluntary exit programs in recent months. From early morning layoff emails to billion-dollar AI bets, Meta's latest restructuring shows how quickly the priorities of big tech are changing. As companies pour money into artificial intelligence, thousands of employees across the industry are now paving the way and paying the price for that transformation. That's all we have on the show for now. We'll see you again at 3 p.m. for more updates. Until then, thanks for watching. First Post.
Introducing the from Nando's. Whatever they're asking for, there's a quick lunch meal for that.
Warfare and battlefield systems. That is becoming a major part of modern warfare. Our next report tells you more.
The race for stealth fighters in Asia is accelerating. China already flies them. Pakistan is now moving towards them. And suddenly, Russia may have an offer that could shape India's future fighter plans. A new twin-seat version of Moscow's Sukhoi Su-57 stealth fighter has reportedly entered early testing. Images circulating on social media appear to show the aircraft undergoing toxic trials. Russia has not officially confirmed the program yet, but the timing is impossible to ignore. Moscow has been trying hard to sell their Su-57 to Delhi, and this new version is designed around something the Indian Air Force has wanted for years, a two-seat stealth fighter. The Su-57 is Russia's fifth-generation fighter aircraft. Fifth-generation jets are built for very different kinds of air combat. The defining feature is stealth. That means enemy radars struggle to detect it. Body shape reduces radar reflections. Weapons are inside the aircraft instead of being outside. Special materials that reduce visibility. These aircraft do more than evade detection. Act like flying command centers. Combine radar, sensors, and electronic warfare systems into one network. That allows pilots to track threats faster, share battlefield information instantly, and respond faster during combat. The Su-57 is Russia's answer to America's F-35 Lightning II and China's J-20. It features stealth shape, advanced radar systems, and long-range missiles. Russia also says newer engines will improve something called super cruise. That means the aircraft can fly faster than the speed of sound without using fuel from afterburners. But the biggest talking point is the second seat. That changes the aircraft's role completely. The second crew member can manage drones, electronic warfare systems, and battlefield coordination during combat. This concept is known as manned-unmanned teaming. That means fighter jets work together to combat drones during missions. This is becoming one of the biggest trends in future warfare. This matters to India because the region's air force is rapidly evolving. China already operates the Chengdu J-20 stealth fighter. Some reports say these aircraft have been deployed close to India's border regions, while Pakistan is also using its Chinese stealth technology. Islamabad has already confirmed an initial collaborative agreement linked to the J-35 stealth fighter. That means stealth warfare is becoming a bigger factor in the region. At the same time, the Indian Air Force is operating below its sanctioned squadron strength. Several older fighter jets are also nearing retirement. And India's own stealth fighter is still under development. That aircraft is called the Advanced Indian Combat Aircraft. A massive testing and integration complex is now being developed in southern state of Pradesh project. But the aircraft is still years away from operational service. That creates a capability gap. Russia believes the Su-57 help fill it. Moscow has reportedly offered India local production, technology transfer, and integration of Indian weapons systems. Russia has reportedly also proposed using India's existing Sukhoi Su-30 MKI infrastructure. This is to support manufacturing. Now, the new twin-seat version may make the proposal even more attractive, because a second crew member can reduce pilot workload during complex drone combat missions. Still, India is not abandoning its own defense. Delhi continues to prioritize the program. The Rafale fleet is also expanding, and the Sukhoi Su-30 MKI upgrade program is moving ahead. But one thing is becoming increasingly clear: stealth fighters are no longer concepts of the future. They are central to modern air warfare. New Delhi is prepared for that reality. Whoa.
For decades, the Gulf sold the world an image of limitless wealth, skylines, luxury hotels, mega projects, and billions made from energy exports. But now the Iran war is testing Gulf economies like never before. The Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most critical shipping routes, has been partially or completely disrupted for weeks. And the Gulf is feeling the pinch. For Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, the UAE, Gulf's energy flows, shipping networks, tourism industries, and business confidence have all taken a hit. And nowhere is that damage.
What do you think is gonna?
Doha Metro Research Park City even hosts the World Cup in 2022 and sovereign wealth fund worth about $600 billion. But then came the Iran war and the subsequent tensions over the Strait of Hormuz. It slammed shut Qatar's door to the world. First, there was the attack. Gulf countries have been the brunt of the fighting between Iran and the United States. Iranian missiles and drones have struck Qatar's Ras Laffan complex. It is a very hard Qatar's energy.
I'm practicing.
The Iranian attack damaged critical infrastructure and reportedly reduced production capacity by about 17%. Then came the blockade of Hormuz. Unlike Saudi Arabia or the UAE, Qatar does not have major alternative export routes that bypass Hormuz. Its economy is geographically trapped behind the waterway. Within 24 hours of the Hormuz blockade, Qatar Energy declared it could not fulfill some export contracts. Reports say Qatar Energy could have already lost billions of dollars since the war began. And every day the strait remains disrupted, the country continues losing hundreds of millions more through lost export sales and shipping costs. Now, even if the strait reopens immediately, analysts say it could take years for output to return to pre-war levels because the numbers are just starting to show the extent of the damage. The war has also hit the part of the Qatar economy that it was trying to build beyond energy. Tourism, aviation, and international business, hotels and boutiques in Doha have reportedly sharply has seen no growth. In one of Qatar's showcase development projects, tourist activity has collapsed. In recent years, Qatar invested heavily to position itself as a global business and tourism hub. But since the war started, international visitor numbers have fallen sharply. Multinational companies have reportedly moved staff out of the country. According to the World Travel and Tourism Council, tourism revenue across West Asia has been falling by an estimated $600 billion a day. According to the International Monetary Fund, Qatar's economy is expected to shrink by 8.6%. But Qatar is not alone. Kuwait and Bahrain have also declared force majeure on some energy exports. It's a clause in contracts that release parties from liability due to extraordinary or unforeseeable events beyond their control, like the war. The UAE is also faced tourism slowdowns and lower business activity. In Dubai, reports describe light traffic, quiet hotels, and reduced tourist movement. Earlier reports said that some businesses cut salaries or place staff on unpaid leave. The International Monetary Fund or the IMF now expects some Gulf economies to contract this year, while others are bracing for sharply slower growth. And the impact is no longer staying inside the Gulf. You know this. Oil prices have surged sharply across the world. Brent crude is now hovering around $110 a barrel, and that is hitting consumers far beyond West Asia. In the United States, petrol prices have jumped more than 50%. Diesel prices are near record levels. According to a new Brown University study, Americans have already spent more than $41 billion extra on fuel. This is, of course, since the war began. That works out to about $316 per household. And it does not stop at the petrol pump. Higher energy costs are pushing up the price of transport, food, airfares, and everyday goods. But for the Gulf states, the issue is long-term. I told you this earlier. US President Donald Trump says he delayed the planned US strike on Iran after requests from leaders in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE who believe a deal with Iran may still be possible. But even as talks continue, the core issue remains the same. The future of the Strait of Hormuz, if anything, this war has exposed a major weakness of the Gulf. Too much depends on a single waterway, and that is why countries across the Gulf are scrambling to build alternatives, new pipelines, new port links, new storage facilities, and new export routes that can bypass Hormuz. Because this conflict has delivered a hard reality check. Even the world's richest countries are not immune to the shock of war.
Prime Minister Modi, why don't you take some questions from the freest press in the world?
Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on a 5-nation tour. His latest stop was Norway. He arrived in Oslo as the leader of a country that has become indispensable to global supply chains, technology, defense, and geopolitics. The Prime Minister wants Norway to deepen strategic ties, explore energy cooperation, Arctic partnerships, and green transition collaboration. He received Norway's highest civilian honor. That should have been the story. But somewhere between the handshakes and the joint statements, something else is now the focus. A Norwegian journalist decided that the most important thing she could do was shout at the Prime Minister. Take a look at this.
Prime Minister Modi, why don't you take some questions from the freest press in the world?
That moment deserves a response, and we have it. So who's this journalist? Her name is Ellie Swenson. She works with the Dagsavisen. This is a Norwegian newspaper based in Oslo. As Prime Minister Modi and his Norwegian counterpart concluded their joint press statement, she shouted from across the room, and I'm quoting, Prime Minister Modi, why don't you take some questions from the freest press in the world? Now let us be clear about what this was. This was not a formal press conference. It was a joint media statement. It was not an open Q&A. And the media knew this. No questions were to be taken by either leader. This was a diplomatic event between two heads of government. And a journalist chose to heckle the Prime Minister of India. Svensson later went on social media. She shared footage of this incident and noted that Norway ranks #1 on the World Press Freedom Index, and India ranks 157. India did not fume. It traded class over class. The Indian embassy in Oslo invited her to attend a formal press briefing where she could ask her questions properly. The same journalist tried to interrupt when the Ministry of External Affairs Secretary C.B. George held a press conference. This was how he handled it.
Let me answer the question. Please don't interrupt me. Please don't interrupt me. You ask me a question. Please. This is my press conference. You ask why should a country trust India? Why should a country trust India? Why should a country trust India? Let me answer that question. Please. A country which believes in both. We have always been following rules wherever it is. That is what India's reputation.
That was India's response. Direct and diplomatic. No drama, no outbursts. Just a clear defense of India's institutions. And that is the difference between asking a question and trying to create a moment. Press freedom matters, but so does professionalism. And speaking of professionalism, we have another example for you. From the world's free press on display. Take a look at this cartoon. It shows the Indian Prime Minister caricatured as the snake charmer. This is by a well-known Norwegian newspaper. So much for the world's #1 press freedom. Because nothing says serious journalism like recycling a colonial era stereotype for a visiting head of state. As someone on X summed it up aptly, racism has a new name, free press. And Oslo was not even where it started. It started at the Hague. when India rejected remarks attributed to the Dutch Prime Minister on concerns raised over press freedom and minority rights. The Ministry of External Affairs called it out.
We face these kind of questions basically because of the lack of understanding of the person who asked the question. India is a country of 1.4 billion people, the largest populated country in the world.
Now let's talk about the index that the journalist highlighted. Norway is number one on the World Press Freedom Index. India is 157. These are the numbers mentioned in bold, as if they were scripture. But here's a question worth asking: who makes this index? The World Press Freedom Index is produced by Reporters Without Borders. This is a Paris-based NGO. And what's their methodology? It relies heavily on surveys and subjective assessments by a network of correspondents and partner organizations. It is not a scientific measurement. It is an opinion poll dressed up in the language of data. India has over 900 television channels, over 300 million internet users consuming news daily, hundreds of newspapers in dozens of languages, and a robust opposition. But what Paris-based NGO says is supposed to end the argument. Also take a look at the countries ahead of us, the likes of France. Liberty, equality, and fraternity. It is France's national motto, rooted in the idea of the French Revolution. In simple terms, it means people should be free, they should be treated equally, and should stand together as one society. But this is a country that banned all conspicuous religious symbols and banned full face coverings in public in 2010, banned the abaya and classroom in 2023.
Oh, okay. Just new one. Just wash right. This one all new right. Just wash right.
Look at the United Kingdom.
Time.
In 2024,
Put down,
riots swept
down,
through
down.
Okay.
mosques were attacked.
Oh, I can already
Hotels,
stop the same.
palaces were set on fire.
Already.
The government used emergency powers to contain its own citizens.
Buy new one.
In the United States, 4 Palestinian
Oh, the sweat are very thin.
wanted peace to
Very easy to come
They
out.
were met with riot police,
To buy the
arson
thick
and
one.
academic suspensions.
Thick
Law
socks.
enforcement
Thick
officials
one.
were
Oh, I'm tired. 7 o'clock until now. Wow.
speaking truth to power.
Charge first
But
of
an
all.
individual firmly asked her not to interrupt, it is suppression of the free press. The rules are different. They've always been different. And the reason they are different has a name. It's called a colonial hangover. It's a lingering assumption that some countries are qualified to judge, and others are qualified only to be judged. But here is what has changed. The India of 2026 is not the India of 1966. It's a space program that landed on the moon's south pole before anyone else did. It has a military capability that commands genuine respect. From Washington, Moscow, Beijing, and beyond, India now sits at tables where it was once lucky to be in them. And it is increasingly unwilling to accept the moral authority of countries that cannot manage their own democracies. The era of nodding politely at Western lectures while quietly accepting their premises is ending. Did the West not get the memo? The United States was ready to strike Iran again. That is what President Donald Trump now feels.
Can I watch the
The
first?
targets were prepared, the military was
Tired
ready,
lah.
and the attack was planned
I'll
for
do it.
today. Then something changed. Trump put his plan to strike Iran on hold, not because the tensions eased, but because Washington's own Gulf allies stepped in. I'm talking about Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. All apparently told Washington the same thing. Wait, we just put a few more weeks. And why is that so? Because they believe a deal with Iran may still be possible.
Well, other countries have come to me and they've said we're getting ready to do a major attack tomorrow. I'm putting off for a while, hopefully maybe forever, but possibly for a while. As we've had very big discussions about tomorrow. And we'll see what they want to really explain. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Somalis, if we could put it up for 2 or 3 days, a short period of time, because I think that they are getting very close to making a deal. If we could do that, where there's no nuclear weapon going into the hands of Iran, I think that if they're satisfied, we will be probably satisfied also. We've informed Israel, we've informed other people in the Middle East that have been involved with us.
That is a remarkable admission. Washington is saying it was ready to escalate this war again. But it is also saying diplomacy is still happening.
We're not going to let Iran have nuclear weapons. So I was told by these 3 countries plus others, and they're dealing directly with our people and right now Iran. And there seems to be a very good chance that they can work something out. If we could do that without bombing the hell out of it, I'd be very happy.
And how did Iran respond to this? By quoting Trump. Iran called this a checkmate. It even claimed that the armed forces to retaliate against any US attack. And that pretty much captures the mood right now. The ceasefire is still holding, but nobody really trusts it. Washington is talking about diplomacy while keeping its strike options ready. And Iran is talking about negotiations while also warning it is ready for war. And the Gulf states had every reason to be on edge. The last round of escalation shook the entire region. Iranian missiles and drones struck key sites in the Gulf. Energy infrastructure came under threat. Countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE found themselves dragged into a conflict they never wanted. So this time, they're trying to stop the situation from spiraling again.
That we are fully separated. The people of the region can be basically the main reasons of any escalation in the region, but also we are supporting a diplomatic effort by Pakistan that has shown seriousness and bringing publicly a final solution. And we do believe that needs more time.
This is no longer just a military standoff. It is also an economic war. Iran has already blocked the Strait of Hormuz for hostile shipping. The United States has its own blockade of Iranian ports, and both sides know exactly what is at stake. I'm sure you are tired of hearing me say this, but Hormuz handles around 1/5 of the world's traded oil. So any further escalation there could hit the global economy even more than it already has. Tehran is going further in tightening its control, and it has established a new maritime authority, the South Strait Authority, and its job is to regulate movement through our routes. What's more, Tehran also is floating an idea of new permits. This time it's not for shipping, it's for fiber optic cables passing through our routes. These are undersea internet cables, big data lines leading off the sea floor. They carry global internet traffic, phone calls, banking data, financial transactions, and communication between countries. A huge part of the world's digital system runs through these cables, and many of them pass through the Gulf region. Iran is now signaling it can control these networks too. So this is no longer just about oil, it's about data.
While we are monitoring all movements and are prepared for any scenario at the negotiations table, regardless of those threats, we are focused on the Iranian nation's interests. As for the threats by the U.S., rest assured, in the case of the slightest error by the other side, we are well versed on how to respond.
The markets are already responding to every new signal. Oil prices fell today after Trump announced the delayed military action, but investors remain nervous because the blockades are still in place and the region remains one incident away from another escalation. Meanwhile, mediator Pakistan has passed a fresh message between Washington and Tehran. Iran says its latest proposal was sent to Islamabad.
U.S.
been reviewing over the past years. As we announced yesterday, our concerns have been considered by the American side. The process is therefore continuing to the Pakistan leadership.
There are related proposals related to the sanctions rules for the use of foreign funds and end UN blockade of US reserves and reparations for war damage. There are also going to enter into restoration. The nuclear program is one of the biggest. Washington wants to limits on Iran's nuclear program. This includes limits on uranium enrichment and control over Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium. If Tehran does not want to negotiate under threat, it wants security guarantees, it wants sanctions relief, and the right to pursue peaceful nuclear efforts. Besides, there are also mixed signals from the background talks. Iranian media claims Washington may allow limited civil nuclear activity. They also claim some scenarios, but US officials are denying proposed major sanctions relief. So both sides are testing each other without wanting to be weak. And that is where things stand right now. The strikes have been delayed, but the United States is keeping its military options ready, and Iran is preparing for retaliation. The question now is, will the deadlock end peacefully, or will the guns start firing again? So there are countries that settle scores with sanctions. Others use tariffs. Some recall ambassadors. These actors have issued strongly welcome. Hey, why you don't cut the door? Still has a name. It's called the Reciprocal Action by Military and Security Forces of the Islamic Republic. Sounds bureaucratic, right? Almost harmless. It isn't. The bill proposes a formal bounty of over 50 million euros, roughly about $58 billion, to any individual or entity that assassinates US President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. This is a legislative act stamped, signed, waiting to be voted on. According to reports, the man behind this is Ibrahim Azizi. He is the chairman of Iran's National Security and Foreign Policy Committee. He did not mince his words. Azizi said, and I'm quoting, the vile president of the United States, the honest and disgraceful Zionist prime minister, and the CENTCOM commander must be targeted and subjected to reciprocal action. He also added, just as our Imam was martyred, the president of the United States must be dealt with Muslim or free person. The Imam is referring to is Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Iran's former supreme leader. He was killed in the February 28 American strikes on Tehran, which were launched jointly by the United States. Now, Iran isn't doing this in a vacuum. The February strikes that killed Khamenei were seismic, not just militarily, but psychologically. The supreme leader of a theocratic state, a man who represented the very soul of the Islamic Republic, gone. And it's clear that Iran wants blood for blood. Another parliament member, Shia went on record saying Iran won't vote on the walls for any of them. The sense Trump and Netanyahu compelled. He also claimed threats have been made against the new supreme leader, Moshtaba Khamenei, and warned Iran's response to any such attempt would be devastating. But here's what should concern you more than the rhetoric. The money is already moving. Days before this parliamentary announcement, a pro-regime media outlet called Mossad claimed Iran had already secured $15 million for a campaign literally called Kill Trump. Now, calls for action against Trump from Iran are not new. After last year's attack by US and Israel on Iran's nuclear sites, a group called Blood Covenant had raised $14 million as a bounty on Trump's side. The group is described by a US-based think tank as operating under the direct aegis of the Israeli regime. There's another one, hacking collectives, and regime-linked militias. This isn't propaganda anymore. This is infrastructure for assassination. When a government begins legislating murder, not inciting it, not tolerating it, but legislating it, something fundamental has shifted. This isn't a cleric issuing a fatwa from a mosque. This is a parliament, a formal institution of the state, debating a line item for political assassination. Trump himself is famously warned that if Tehran tried to do it, the United States would wipe them off the face of the earth. Every sovereign nation claims the right to retaliation, but it refuses to trust the policy. That is not a coincidence to politics. The real question is how that retaliation is carried out. Because there is a difference between military response and publicly discussing assassination boundaries on sitting world leaders. One operates within the logic of state conflict, the other pushes the world into something far murkier. These reports are accurate. Iran is not merely threatening retaliation. It is blurring the line between statecraft and targeted political vengeance. That shift has major consequences because once assassination rhetoric enters formal politics, every future conflict risk becomes
this one was good, Amma.
more unpredictable
Sorry,
and far more difficult to contain.
Itu jangan lagi. Nothing.
Yeah, I know,
What's
but,
like it one?
but you know, right?
Now,
You
Russia
always
has tested a new
complain.
version of its stealth fighter jet. It is called
Tipo, you know.
Su-57, and this one counts but the
Why
Russians
also you
drawing
complain?
attention in Asia.
Never appreciate.
Why? Because air warfare is
How you
changing quickly.
take care
China
of
already operates stealth fighters. Pakistan is now moving towards Beijing's fifth generation jets, and India is also developing its own stealth aircraft. But the new
It's a
Su-57
challenge
design
of
is
race.
meant for a different kind of combat.
Okay, no.
One pilot
Everything
flies
is not
the
your
aircraft,
money.
while the
My
second
money.
pilot
Yeah, that's a challenge.
electronic warfare and battlefield systems.
Really,
That is becoming a major part of modern warfare. Our next report says
You didn't know, you know.
The stealth fighters in Asia is accelerating.
what's the matter?
Pakistan is now moving towards
You know, so everything what he talk to me or whatever, I have to take it now.
the shape India's
You must.
plans.
You know, mother like don't care. Already mentioned.
After I kill him, what?
There is some mother like that.
Oh, we know.
Images circulating on
That's some
social
mother like that
media
one. Can have many happen in news now.
pilots and trials. Russia has not officially confirmed the program yet.
Even on some
The
also
timing
kill
is
the
not
mother.
fixed
Like
yet.
that. Many happening like that.
And this
Because why? Because of this one. Forcing like that.
The Su-57 is Russia's fourth generation fighter aircraft. Generation jets. Divided features stealth.
That's why you must be very careful how you raise your children. That's why every parents must know this.
You must know, but how about the other one? Yeah, this one you can see, yeah.
Yeah lah. One day
These aircraft
he's lucky he have us. Us without us it's already jail already lah.
electronic warfare
Already jail already one.
allows pilots to track threats faster.
Yeah, without us
Respond faster.
without you defend I don't know.
The
The family already broken.
Ya lah broken, Surya dah kahwin, Dali.
China was planned in 2020.
That one I know and I can predict.
Advanced radar systems and long-range missiles.
It's Dali also, raise children. He must also have responsibility, he knows.
Man.
Aircraft fly faster than
It's mine.
Number whose fault? His fault lah.
But the biggest talking point is the
If you
cities.
don't like the children you want, then don't raise. Simple.
Remember,
You are the one to raise. The one.
electronic warfare systems.
So you must take it, no matter what.
This concept is known as
Yeah, SMS list me, like that lah.
strategies put together that shows English
The character also like that, that's why you must take it.
trends in warfare. This matters to India. The region's air strategy one of them. China already operates stealth fighter. Some reports say these aircraft have been deployed close to India's border regions. Pakistan is also moving towards Chinese stealth technology. Islamabad has already confirmed an initial collaborative agreement to inject the stealth fighter. That means stealth warfare is becoming a bigger factor in the region. Several older fighter jets are also near retirement. And India's own stealth fighter is still under development. That's it. Massive testing in India. Moscow has reportedly offered India local production, technology transfer, and integration of Indian weapons systems. Russia has reportedly also proposed India's systems infrastructure. This is to support manufacturing of the new twin seat version of the proposal because a simple crew member is part of workload to complex very combat missions. Still, India is not abandoning its own defense. They continue to prioritize the program. And the Somali S-38 upgrade program is moving ahead. But one thing is becoming increasingly clear: stealth fighters are no longer the concept of the future. It's central to modern air warfare. Damn it, air, yet.
For decades, the Gulf sold the world its image of limitless wealth, skylines, luxury hotels, mega projects, and billions made through energy exports. But now the Iran war is testing Gulf economies like never before. The Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most critical shipping routes, has been partially or completely disrupted for weeks. And the Gulf is feeling the pinch. From Qatar to Kuwait, Bahrain to the UAE, Gulf's energy flows, shipping networks, tourism industry, and business confidence have all been hit. And nowhere is that damage more visible than in Qatar. Qatar has built its modern economy on natural gas. That gas transformed Qatar from a small Gulf state into one of the world's richest countries per capita. Today, more than 60% of Qatar's government revenue comes from gas and gas-related exports. And Qatar has used that money to build national infrastructure. The Doha Metro Mobile Smart City even hosts the World Cup in 2022, and a sovereign wealth fund worth about $600 billion. But then came the Iran war and the subsequent tensions over the Strait of Hormuz. It slammed shut Qatar's door to the world. First, there were the attacks. Gulf countries have borne the brunt of the fighting between Iran and the United States. Iranian missiles and drones have struck Qatar's Ras Laffan energy complex. It is very hard to Qatar's energy industry. The Iranian attack damaged critical infrastructure and reportedly reduced production capacity by about 17%. Then came the blockade of Hormuz. Unlike Saudi Arabia or the UAE, Qatar does not have major alternative export routes that bypass Hormuz. Its economy is geographically trapped behind the waterway. Within 20 hours of the Hormuz blockade, Qatar Energy declared it could not fulfill some export contracts. Reports say Qatar Energy could have already lost billions of dollars since the war began. And every day the facing infrastructure, the country continues losing hundreds of millions to lost export sales and shipping costs. Now, even if the Strait reopens immediately, analysts say it will take years for output to return to pre-war levels, because the numbers are just starting to show the extent of the damage. The war is all part of the Qatar economy that it was trying to build beyond energy, tourism, aviation, and international business. Hotels and boutiques in Doha have reportedly seen no footfall. In one of Qatar's showcase development projects, tourist activity In recent years, Qatar invested heavily to position itself as a global business and tourism hub. But since the war started, international visitor numbers have fallen sharply. Multinational companies have reportedly moved staff out of the country. According to the World Travel and Tourism Council, tourism revenue across West Asia has been falling by an estimated $600 million a day. According to the International Monetary Fund, Qatar's economy is expected to shrink by 8.6%. But Qatar is not alone. Kuwait and Bahrain have also declared force majeure on some energy exports. It's a clause in contracts that release parties from liability during extraordinary or unforeseeable events beyond their control, like the war. The UAE has also faced tourism slowdowns and lower business activity. In Dubai, reports describe light traffic, quieter hotels, and reduced tourist movement. Earlier reports said that some businesses cut salaries or placed staff on unpaid leave. The International Monetary Fund and the IMF now expect some Gulf economies to contract this year, while others are bracing for sharply slower growth. And the impact is no longer staying inside the Gulf. You know this. Oil prices have surged sharply across the world. Brent crude is now hovering around $110 a barrel, and that is hitting consumers far beyond West Asia. In the United States, petrol prices have jumped more than 50%. Diesel prices are near record levels. According to a new Brown University study, Americans have already